Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Climate Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Diana Kayla Hochberg. Looking forward to our conversation today, Diana.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you so much for having me and creating this space.
Yeah, you're a star. I don't know whether you noticed how I pronounced the surname. A bit of German came in there that I spent some time in Germany.
Yes, actually, I understand at one time it was von Hochberg, but they took away the von.
All right, okay. Well, that means you're aristocracy, right?
Yeah, of
Yeah, you know
course.
that. That's
Yes.
aristocracy. That's aristocracy. Um, thriving adoptees, ladies and gentlemen, Diana is an adoptee, right? So, what comes to? Do you like that word, adoptee?
Well, it's a little bit different for me. It's part of my story. I'm a late discovery,
Yeah,
and for me, thriving was reclaiming that I was taken from me, my story, my identity, my name. I didn't know I was adopted, or in my case, black market. Until I was the age of, I was a little past 38. That moment, it was like an earthquake. It shattered me. Everything I believed about myself, it was just so shocking. It just cracked open. Uh, but I didn't stay broken, you know. Thriving isn't about being fine with what happened. It's about facing the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and choosing to live in it. It shifts, from survival to ownership, from silence to voice, from being who others need to becoming I am truly who I am. There's a line in my memoir, if I may say, that captures it. It wasn't the moment I found out that changed me. It was the moment decided to seek the truth. Anyway, even when people told me, leave it alone. Even when my records were fake, and even when the silence felt louder than the words. Thriving, it's not neat, it's not easy, but it's real.
yeah. You can tell she's a writer, ladies and gentlemen. That was epic.
So, hmm, what happens? I guess it's okay if I say what happens when you thrive. Uh, thriving and helped me find the truth, a willingness to be seeking, no matter how many people tried to shut me down. And believe me, there were so many people. My quest journey is a 30-year journey. It was an on and off. I discovered I was adopted, offhand comment by a friend of my father's who was an ex-CIA
Yeah.
agent.
And how old were you when that happened, Diana?
Um, Almost 39. So I was 38.
Okay, right. So the whole
Yeah.
thing came out in one, right? I thought maybe
No,
you
the whole
mentioned being
thing.
30, you mentioned it happening when you were 38, but I didn't realize it all happened in
Oh yeah,
that space of
it all happened at once. I was out in Las Vegas and it just all happened at once. We were out to lunch and I lost both my parents that raised me very early in life. My mom had cancer when I was 9 and she died before I was 11. And my
wow.
father, that I knew, and you know, he was my hero. But I wasn't even 26 when he passed. And then, uh, unfortunately, I also lost my husband, the guy I was married to. Uh, I was 36. So there was I had a lot of death in my life very early, a lot of changes. And, you just had to be strong about it. But it wasn't just discovering that I was adopted. I was found out that I was trafficked. I don't know if,
Yeah.
because I guess to say trafficked because I was 21 days old. I found out when I was taken across the Canadian border. I always thought I was born in Manhattan and I was born in Montreal. And so my birth certificate is false. It's why I'm a black market baby. There's hidden transactions. There's no legal um, adoption. She never signed any adoption papers. So I guess when you asked me before, adoption means to me, yes, my parents raised me. So in the adoption community, it's probably easier to say I'm adopted. I toy with that back and forth a little bit. But the fact is, there is no adoption legal papers. My birth certificates, I have several,
Yeah.
like four.
Right. Wow. So, but it sounds to me like you kind of, a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, actually used to say, that most of us are waiting. We spend a lot of time. We're waiters. We're waiting for something to happen until we're going to be content, or we we we're putting off. We're putting off our contentment until something happens, and something about what rather than creating it, right? Um, so we're waiters rather than creators. But something about what you said seemed to me like you didn't put you you didn't put your contentment, delay your contentment after you got till you got the truth. You decided to kind of put you first. Does that make any sense?
It does. And I decided it wasn't just going to come to me unless I went searching for it. There's no proof that I was born in Canada. Trying to prove that I was born, besides for finding out from he was a baby broker,
Right.
and who confessed after talking to his lawyer before he even talked to me, because it had been so many years, so he wasn't going to go to jail. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was one of probably at that time 1,000 in Montreal alone.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, it just wasn't legal adoption. Uh, we can't help that. So thriving to me in a world that says you don't exist, it means going forward anyway.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah. Yeah.
sense?
Where it's keeping on going. It's persistence. It's commitment. It's taking action. So what has fueled your persistence?
Well, I had to build a case. I wanted to know my roots. I wanted to know where I came from. I wanted to know, I mean, I was raised by middle class, modern Orthodox Jewish home, and to find out, I didn't do my DNA for many, many years. So I did the old school where you went to the library, where you researched microfinch, where you asked relatives questions, where you went out and you did your own investigating to piece together everything. And then surviving didn't look like peace at first, but it became an obsession. And, there was grief,
Yeah.
there was exhaustion, there was rage, but I didn't stop. I know I needed to know the truth. It's the only thing that was going to make me whole who I am today.
Yeah. So was it always an obsession? Because I say some of I say to some people about what I do, doing the podcast and stuff. I say on a good day, it's a passion, and on a
Mhm.
bad day, it's an obsession. It seems it depends how I am, right? Does does it feel like that to you? What did that? Because it's a long journey. What do you say? 30
Well,
years?
yes, well, I didn't choose how it started,
No.
but I chose to continue it.
Yeah.
And then there were years, and I talk about it, if I may reflect back to my book, there's a 15-year period. I had nothing when I did find my Canadian family in Vancouver, British Columbia. There was a period because of what happened after some reunions that I had to make a choice for safety reasons to separate myself from them.
Yeah.
And that was a 15-year separation. And then to decide to make the decision, it was time to go back and really go forward. And that's when always did lot of journaling. So I was able to go back. And then it was time to go and start making trips there and start pounding the pavement, basically, and investigating and finding out because
Yeah.
I guess it's what you need to be at peace. I wanted to be at peace. And, hopefully it could also help others. Never give up. You never want to give up.
Yeah. So I can understand that at 38, finding this information out, it was like an earthquake. So, people have pulled the rug. People have pulled the rug
Oh,
from
yeah.
underneath your feet, and you're looking, you're falling into an earthquake. You talked about deciding, being. I think, what did you say? Deciding not to stay broken. Is that what you
Well, I
said?
just felt like everything, broke when I found that out. I mean, I denied that this was true. I remember calling my brother. He lived in New York. I remember calling him and he says, "I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you're my sister. Of course, what are you talking about?" He knew nothing. And I said, "Well, where were you? Where were you when I was born?" And he was away. They had him visiting some relatives. So he didn't know.
And presumably he knows that he's biologically related, or he wasn't.
No, he's not. He's 7.5 years older than me, almost 8 years older than me.
Yeah,
So
but
he's not. He now
but he's
knows,
not. He knows that he's not another black
right? And
adopted baby.
he also found out that he's adopted. But I was able through DNA, I found his birth family for him quite fast, within less than 9 months.
But he hadn't been taught. Right.
Yes, yes, he's in reunion with them,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is nice.
yeah, yeah. Um,
I'm happy for him.
so you said something about not broken. What does that mean?
Well, I just felt that everything was, you know, I was in the fog. I was in denial. Took a long time for me. I kept saying, no, this isn't happening. It's almost like a nightmare at first.
Yeah. Have you
You
heard of the Kubler-Ross curve?
um,
Yeah. Right.
no, I'll have to
So
research that.
it popped into my head the other day, right? So it's I think she's a grief therapist, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She she came up with this um, way of describing grief, and it's called the Kubler-Ross curve. I'll put a link in the show notes, listeners, in case because you might be driving and you think, "Oh, what was that woman that Simon was going on about?" So she set out this curve, right? That she noticed her clients were going through, and the reason I mention it is because it had popped into my head a couple of days ago. A lot of people talk about as adoptees as us having um, going through grief, right? So we've lost
Yeah,
our
and I
person.
had a lot of grief. I had grief with that, but I had a lot of death early in my life, which
So it's all layered on top,
so it just,
layered
it's
on
just
top.
almost like when the bucket gets so full, you just all of a sudden I remember having
Yeah,
panic attacks. I went through a period of panic attacks, but I think by writing, especially writing my book and talking to people and just, you know, doing meditation, uh, I do photography and just also the community, the adoption community. I mean, it's just been wonderful. And it's just to know that there's other people out there like me and you. It just sort of it helps get you back grounded. Does that make sense? It just
yeah,
helps you
yeah.
get
It
back.
does, yeah.
And everybody's story is different. I take no story supersedes another story. We all have different stories. We're all like diamonds. Each one is unique.
Yeah. So the Thriving Adoptees logo is a diamond, right?
Yes.
So,
I
I'll
worked
just,
in jewelry for a
I,
long time, so
okay. I just going to flick back briefly on this Kubler-Ross thing because denial is the first stage of
hmm
this Kubler-Ross curve. So that's why I mentioned it. If people want to check it out, right? And there's a proviso really that she simplifies it, but we keep on going. We keep on going round. She simplifies it. She doesn't say how long we're going to be in each steps. She doesn't say that sometimes it's more like snakes and ladders, chutes and ladders. You call it in the States, right? So you go up and then you drop down, and then you go back again, drop up. You keep on going. Then it's one step forward, two steps back, and that's the way that it works. But it's an interesting model to look at. Is this Kubler-Ross grief curve? So you talked about writing your memoir. So what's that done for you?
Well, the whole process, just learning everything and meeting everybody and just, rewriting too, because it's all about you find out one thing and then you find out that's not the truth, and then you do find out another truth, because there were so many lies, and I had so many people kept saying, close this can of worms. You don't want to have anything to do with it. Shut it down. So many
Yeah,
people, and then not believing my story. I even dealt with journalists who, no, this can't be. It can't be possible. Well, it is possible.
yeah. Why do you think people think that they have the right to tell us to stop opening this can of worms? Is it self-preservation for them? I mean, why?
I think it is for them, or, they were afraid of what they did. For instance, there was a driver that I spoke to, a driver that was with my dad, a friend of his, when they went to get the baby up in upstate New York, because they came through, he couldn't, the baby broker couldn't just cross the border. I'm a baby scooper, 1955. You couldn't just cross the border in the 50s. And here I am with a baby, a man. So she was with him. And first they went to Plattsburgh, New York, and then they went down to Lake Placid. And the exchange was made in Lake Placid. Um, there were no papers signed. It was a business transaction. It was money. It was for, they gave her money if she needed some dental work. She wanted to go to college, and they gave her a one-way ticket back to Vancouver. That's part of my story. But this took a long time to find out. And that was with, really becoming friends almost with the baby broker, because what was different about him is I think he fell in love with my mother. So I think he opened up. It's a wild ride. Let me tell you, it was a wild ride to meet the man who took you across the border.
Yeah,
It's like it was wild.
truly, truly wild. Um, did writing this? Because people often talk about writing a memoir being cathartic, right? So we get everything down, we get everything down on paper. You'd been journaling, so presumably the journaling was helping you make sense of what was.
hmm
Um,
Well, it gave shape to the silence. It helped me process everything that was stolen from me, and to find out. I mean, my mom's side of the family, my mom, they were from Vancouver, British Columbia. They were, Ukrainian, Ukrainian, Austria, and Poland. That's their background. Uh, and to find, that out and to meet them and to learn some of their traditions and heritage. And I mean, I met my grandmother. She was, gosh, when I met her, how old was she? I don't know. She was in her 80s. She died at 90. But I mean, to find out she had a granddaughter,
yeah,
and she's in her 80s, and she called me, my mother's name was Donna. She called me Donna because there was such a resemblance, especially, you go back 30 years when she first saw me. I look, the similarities, that mirror that we talk about a
yeah,
lot, that mirror effect when you look in the mirror. so many people, relatives that I met, right away they called me Donna. I've had people that don't even know my story call me Donna. It's crazy.
Well, and there's Donna and Diana, quite similar kind of names.
I
Yeah.
guess.
So what? But is that name the name that you go by now?
I go
What?
by Diana, yes.
Yeah. But what was the name that you grew up? Did you grow up
Well,
as
my
that?
first birth certificate that they sent me, it only had a last name. There was no first or middle name. The second one had initials, DK. Wait a minute, and wait a minute for the third one?
No. Okay.
Karen Diane.
Right. Okay.
And then I find out then we also have Karen Diana. So since, a lot of times I used to hear out of the words KD, I never understood, but my mother's initials were DK, Donna Cole, Kolaski with a K.
Right.
So I found that interesting too now as in processing all this that my first name and middle name are her initials. I
Right.
don't know if that means anything, but I think it's kind of, all. Does
Yeah.
that make
Where does
sense?
the Hochberg come from then?
Hochberg is the name I grew up with. My married name, I was married, was a white man.
Right. Okay.
So, but I had a hyphenate, I use Hochberg.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So when you mentioned giving shape to the silence, what do you mean by that?
Well, processing everything that was stolen from me. I wanted to get everything back. I wanted to, and the community has helped me, as I said, that I'm not alone. My son, I have a son who helped ground me. I wanted to show him, that you have to be honest. I raised him to be an honest, he's a wonderful young man now. Oh, he's not a young man anymore, but he has a wife and I have my first granddaughter after 13 years. And it's, I wanted him to know it's just better because they're always going to find out the truth. And that's how I raised him. You're
Yeah.
going to hide something from me. You're going to do something wrong. Well, guess what? I'm going to find it out. And that's, how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I wasn't broken because I was adopted. I was broken because the truth was hidden from me. So for me, thriving would actually be no more secrets. Ask the questions you want to ask, answer them,
Yeah.
and stay firm. So many people kept lying to me and not wanting to tell me, and I don't understand a lot of it. Well, I do now, after finding out the end. I didn't find out who the biological dad was until January 2023. So you could see how recent that was.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different, it's all the way up there.
Yeah. And had he died, the guy, or was he still alive or
Um, I missed him, I missed him, you know, but that's another part of my story. I was told by my aunts who he was. So for years, I went searching for this man in Vancouver who, this is where the lie comes in. He was actually an American.
right?
So both parents weren't Canadian, like I was told. So that's another lie. And that was my own relatives, my bio relatives lying to me after they found me, after we were in reunion.
Yeah.
It's like, but uh
Was there a point at which because this must have been really frustrating and upsetting and annoying. Was there a point at which you just thought, well, nothing else can phase me on this research, on this journey? Did you get to that stage, or did it continue to hurt?
when you find yourself, I mean, it was, of course, was very emotional and very like, oh, you want to like, sometimes you have to take it. The reason it probably took me so long to get to where I am now, because now I feel good about myself and I feel good about, my story. Do I like who my father turned out to be? No, but we don't choose that, okay? Would I have liked to have met him? Probably at least once would have been uh maybe once would have maybe been nice. But knowing who he was, and then I'm also am I thankful for how who raised me? Yeah, I mean, I had a great dad. Yes, what my dad did, my dad that raised me, did he know everything? Did he know how illegal what he did? I'll never know that. There are unanswered questions throughout my story, but you have to come to peace with what you want to accept. But I'm okay. He was a good man. He was a really good man, and everybody loved him.
Yeah,
So, and he loved me. So as far as my raised dad, he's my father. He's one of my dedications in my book.
yeah. Did you manage to meet your birth mother?
Unfortunately, I've never had the privilege to meet my birth mom. That's another part of my story that's a little unknown. I don't know everything. I know 96% of my story. I had to come to
Not
peace.
95, 96.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm joking.
I had I told you I'm a little comedian.
Yeah, me too.
I had to come to terms like, what I'm going to accept. And you have to let go. There are three possibilities about my mother to this day. Not one, but three.
Three. What do you
Yes.
mean? Three. What are the three possibilities?
Well, uh, is she dead? Is she not dead? You know, there's, some possibilities there.
Ah, so are you still trying to get to the bottom of that?
Yes and no. It may be for, I don't know. I mean, that's a question I've asked myself a couple of times, but that's why the book to me helped me so much, especially and you'll get it. As I said, I know you said you'd never have time, but I think you might have time for this. Um,
Did I say never?
no,
That's not
no.
very nice. I
No,
hope I
I
didn't
think
say
you're
never.
gonna find time. I have a feeling I heard it's addicting.
Okay.
Uh, but it came at the end, it was okay. It's okay with what I did find out. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
you said peace. You
Yes, I am at peace.
peace.
I'm at
Yeah.
peace. I like where I live. I'm in a very peaceful community. I'm in a everybody around me is very, it's a positive atmosphere. And I think we need that. I think there's so much negativity in the world right now. So if we could find some positivity and peace, it just helps us and helps us grow
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely, as
But
you said at the beginning, it was definitely earth-shattering. And I know you've met, I'm friends with some what they call NPEs, when people find out. I find that a lot of times an NPE, I have a good friend I'd met here and we become friends and we've talked, and it's very similar to a late discovery. It's very similar, except usually it's just one parent with them. I have everything. I have the,
yeah.
as a friend of mine out in Denver, he said, you have it all. You have NPE, you have black market baby, you have, you know.
So
So,
you've talked a lot about the kind of the external factors and the truth, and getting to the truth beyond the lies to finding peace. But what does it mean for you? Presumably, the journey was very emotional. Lots was very emotional. Lots of highs and lows, frustration, anger. Was what was the spectrum like for you?
well, it means finding, especially now as an author, my identity. I found my identity and I'm not scared anymore. I was a scared child. I was the child. I was shy. I was scared. I would never do anything like this. I would stand behind my father if he was going to introduce me. I was the shy kid.
Yeah.
I don't run from anything. I don't cover, you don't want to cover
Yeah.
story.
What
I'm not
what
afraid
did
to tell
you
my story.
yeah. What do you attribute the shyness to when you were a child?
Well, I think back and I'm gonna share this with you. When I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. I don't know if you're familiar with scoliosis. I've heard the
Something
term.
to do with the spine, yeah?
Yes, and I wore a terrible brace called the Milwaukee brace. It had metal going down here, here, and in the back. And that was 3.5 years. So as a teenager, I wore this brace. That was an embarrassment. You had to then get much bigger clothes to cover it. Uh, but my mother that raised me, you have to keep in mind, I didn't know that she wasn't my mom. It seemed that once I was diagnosed with the scoliosis, she wasn't taking me to the doctor or the orthopedic or the hospital. It was my dad who was doing it all. It's like all of a sudden I wasn't, you know, I was broken in her eyes, you know, but I didn't understand that at the time. But also, too, she did have cancer and she was going through, that was, she was going through cancer. And so that had to be, so I don't know whatever. My mother wasn't a warm person, the mother that raised me. There was nothing warm and fuzzy about her. I don't have fond memories of her. Okay. So do you maybe think, maybe the mom I heard about was when you heard that she was a real warm, giving person from other relatives and how she treated family members and knowing the mother I had, it's like, you know what I'm trying to say there,
Yeah,
Simon, a little bit?
I think so. I mean,
She wasn't warm at all. She
no,
was cold. And she wasn't a nice person.
yeah. I think the the nature of our relinquishment and the nature and how we're raised are two different things, and but they multiply. It multiplies up the trauma. So it's not, you know, it's not 10 plus 10. It's 10 times 10. Do you see what I mean?
Well, I was treated like I was a secret, but I'm not a secret anymore. I was a secret. The secret they kept. They had pictures of my grandmother, who was like my father's parents. They would actually say, because I would say I don't look like them. I don't look like that because they were very fair-skinned people, and I'm very, olive
Yeah.
complexion. And then they would say, "Oh, because you look like grandmother."
Yeah.
You look like Molly. And they'd even I had a picture out of her. Well, I don't look like my parents, but I look like my
Yeah. Yeah.
grandmother.
So they had some fudged answer to the question.
hmm hmm But I share my story not just to heal, but I want others to feel that they're not alone. The truth does matter. Your voices matter. Silence is not good.
No, no.
And I refuse to be silent anymore.
What would the key points around what are the key, not the key points, the key moments around finding the peace, you finding peace?
Accepting the answers, accepting my new relatives, accepting who wanted to accept me. I've met some great cousins who they treat me like they knew me my whole life. I grew up with the family I grew up with, the cousins. They were great. We did things on the weekends, we did things on Sunday. There was never any talk about that, Manny and Ethel, that were my parents' names, that we were adopted children. There was never any say that we were adopted.
But
But
everybody
I
must have
understand.
known.
But back then they didn't really talk about it,
No, no, no.
and I believe, this is what's got to be changed. Adoption now. I'm not anti-adoption. I'm about educating. So when you adopt, I think it's very important from the beginning to tell the stories where the child came from, to maybe give them history, to maybe even encourage. I have a cousin when her kids were 18, she decided to give them, they gave them a file. They already knew they were adopted, these children. But at 18, if you want to look for your parents or if you want to search, we'll help you. But these are your medical records. And that's another thing. I wanted to know, did I want to know who my bio dad was? Not necessarily. That wasn't the beginning of my search. I was more wanting to know about my mom. But the medical records, it's so important to know your medical history. I was following the parents that I raised. There was cancer throughout my mom's side of the family, the mom that raised me. Everyone, all her relatives, her sister, her brother, her mother, they all cousins, they all had cancer. So you have the fear of cancer. And then the dad side, they were all diabetics. Well, thank goodness I had, I have my issues with my scoliosis, but I am not, I don't have those problems. But when you grow up thinking you do, your medical history is so important, especially as we get older. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and I had none of that. So
Not having our medical history is it's bad. I think we need to have that.
that to me, it compounds. So there's the generally speaking, when I think about adoptees, it compounds. So there's, as I say, there's the relinquishment, there's the nature of how we're parented, and then for late discovery adoptees or people that are lied to, like you, there's that, um, as you say, the earthquake the shattering of trust.
Well, the
And
people I trusted, they built a life that was based on fiction.
yeah,
There was no deep sense of, there was betrayal. I was numb. I was angry. I was obsessed. Yes. I couldn't rest until I found the answers. But once I found the answers, I mean, it was a big puzzle. I mean, the puzzle. I had made a room into like a detective room. I had posters. I had maps. If I found out a piece, I had to do things because I didn't do
yeah,
my DNA. It was, I think, almost 216. And that took me 7 years after that till I found out, you know, the truth.
yeah. I'm intrigued about the fact that you're at peace and you're at peace with the unknowns, right?
I am. I am because
About
you
your
know what?
biological
I'm
mother.
at peace with the unknown, but if I find out more, fine. I just, and it's in my book, and I've talked about it before on with others and with other groups. Supposedly, my mother passed away in 1967 at the age of 29. And I do say strongly supposedly. And usually when you read it, you'll understand where I'm coming from it because I would like your input. I think you'll find it fascinating.
Yeah,
See, all my mother's records were erased. Her school, she was one of five. She was one of five children. She's the only one that went to college. My mother spoke five languages fluently, at least five. And she traveled.
yeah. But if she supposedly died in 1967, then I can see why the the question still. And I guess that's what intrigues me is that so much of the quest has been to uncover the truth, and then to get to the stage where you're at peace with not knowing that final piece of the jigsaw. That's what I'm asking you about that because I think it's significant for people that are listening, and this side, this is a big thing to be at peace with not knowing, and, and I'm interested in exploring with how you found that peace, or what is it that gives you that peace with the what knowing, other than just saying, well, I've accepted it, because
No, it
you
wasn't that easy to accept it, but I was at a place the day that I probably said, it's okay. It's okay. This is okay. This is how you finish this part of the story. Is there possibly a book two? Possibly, if there's enough information. But at the end, you just had to decide, okay, because I want to live. This is the only life we know. And for me to go on and enjoy the rest of my life and be able maybe to help somebody else and saying it's okay if you don't know everything. Like yourself. I had to learn also to like myself, who I am, and, and be happy with what I've learned and how I've grown. And, I have still to this day, I was told I can never have children. I have one son. I wouldn't change that for a minute. I was also told that I'd be in a wheelchair at 40. I do have issues where I do walk with a cane because of my severe scoliosis, but I don't let it stop me. Anybody that knows me has told me, wow, you do more than, because I'm not going to stop because I have scoliosis, or I'm not going to stop because I'm in pain. I have
know,
to, there's mental pain, there's physical pain, there's an emotional pain. I've had the emotional pain already. I'm trying to deal with the physical pain by I swim, I meditate, I do some yoga. That's the only way, and I go to meetings with different people. Uh, am I
yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people talk about, resilience being kind of like an adoptee superpower.
Well, we do have a different, I have a sixth sense that a lot of people don't have. And especially non-adoptees versus adoptees, I could say we have that. I don't know if that's extra sensitivity or feelings or just know. Sometimes we just know. I know sometimes when the phone rings, I know who it is before I pick up. We're not even looking at it. Or you're thinking about somebody and all of a sudden they call. I'm sure that's happened to you. I haven't heard from somebody in a long time and all of a sudden the phone calls, it's them. Sometimes you just know. I can't explain it. You just know. I remember visiting, going back to my mom, my bio mom, visiting the cemetery. And I found it very interesting since she was very close to her family. They were all close. They were from the old country and they all did things together, but they never went to the cemetery. They never went to the cemetery. They never visited the cemetery 10 minutes away. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And yet I see pictures that I've been able to acquire over the years that they seem all happy. And from what my aunts did say, based on what I was told, and my uncles, that she was the gem of the family. She was the one that went to Montreal. She was the one, she left early. She was the one that went to college. My mother graduated from McGill. So, I guess what I'm saying is you just have to, and I have met another black market baby in Montreal, and we have spoken several times, and we had some similarities in our stories. And he's in my book too. And then I met a lady, Dr. Karen Balcom. She wrote about, the people being trafficked, very especially in Canada, 1940s through 1970s. It's a big thing. It was really big. But what saddens me, it's still going on, but it's going on in this country, in the US right now. There's a lot of things, illegal adoptions going on. And I'd like to, and then, we could go on and on. The foster care system. makes me cry, the foster care system. I think that's needs to be concentrated on more and more because it's so broken. The foster care,
Yeah.
I actually get upset about the foster care system.
Can I take you back to the to the not knowing and being at peace with not knowing? So, what would you say to uh, an adoptee who's listening, who has still has a lot of questions, and those questions are those questions are keeping that adoptee from peace. What would you say to the adoptee listening?
Keeping them from peace? I would say, well, first of all, I think each case is unique, and you have to know how far of their story they do know. And two, is it are your bio parents are do you know who your biological parents are? I'm working with a case now. They still don't know who they're, I help people. That's another thing. I do a lot of genealogy for people. I do help and people with their trees, but I tell them right from the beginning, do you want to know everything? Because you're not going to, everybody has a secret on their DNA, it seems. How much do you want to know? Or do you want to know the truth? Because I believe in telling you the truth, whatever I find out, but I will triple research it before I give you the answer. Because there's a lot of people that connect things on their trees wrong. I would probably say to them, what would make you, what do you need to have peace? What matters? How much truth do you need to have peace? Your voice is more, you don't have to be silent about it
Yeah,
because somebody else might not be at peace with where I ended up, with my circumstances. That's why I mean every case is unique.
different. Oh, what have you learned by helping others through this process? You know, the genealogy. What have you learned about?
I've learned
Um,
that some people, everybody takes it differently. I think I've taken everything I found. I think I've taken in, like if I found out something new or that I needed to process, sometimes I have to walk away a little bit and then go on. Some people just react really fast. I think it's better to think about it and process it. Uh, the hardest thing I think I was trying to tell somebody that, I couldn't find their half brother. And I've had other people, even a search angel, I've had a genealogist also help me on that one. And the reason that case meant so much to me, it turns out that her half brother, who she found out after her mom passed, had been married before. But this is why this case is personal to me, and I'll share that too. Her half brother that I can't find is my brother's biological father.
right.
He was 15, they were young. They were young at the
Yeah.
time. Um, when he married my brother's bio dad married at 21 and they had a baby, and I guess it didn't work out. And she gave the baby up for adoption when the baby was 4 years old, and I can't find that baby. And I do feel terrible that I haven't been able to find that baby for her.
Yeah.
So, and that's hard to tell somebody that you're trying to help. This is as far as I can go. And I know she's hurting from it. And I'd like to see her, you know, how can I tell her, I mean, she wants an answer. Is he alive? Is he dead? So I'd like to see her be at peace with it. But I just don't know if I'll ever find the answers for her on that. But I am working. I met a lady the other day that, I'm going to ask her to help because you don't know. You don't give up. Basically, what I'm saying is you never give up. Yes, I am at peace. But if something comes knocking at the door or a phone call and saying, hey, look what I found out, am I going to listen?
Yeah,
Yes, of course, I'd be foolish to tell you I wouldn't listen, but I'm okay with what I have found.
yeah.
And and I know that's really hard for most, but I have to be, for me, for my sanity, I have to be at peace because I don't want to stop growing.
And what does that growth mean, look like to you? What does that mean to you?
I evolved. I mean, I, I've evolved so much. Just because I guess we go back to nature and nurture. I was raised in a very traditional, modern Orthodox Jewish home because I find out that I'm not. I'm not, and when I was 40, I married Irish Catholic, by the way.
Yeah,
I fell in love with an Irish Catholic man. The guilt that I felt back then, I was given a lot of Jewish guilt, you
okay.
know, but the guilt that I felt, I could have avoided all that guilt, you know, but it doesn't take away. I'm still practicing Jewish. I'm not that Orthodox, probably more of the Reform side, but you don't change. It doesn't change you. I mean, you know, I do still have 10%, so I'm covered. But, it's funny what DNA tells you, everyone thinks, oh no, I'm 100% whatever. You know what I'm talking about. 100% you find out. No. Matter of fact, I have 12% from the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
hello, 12%. I have all these relatives in England. So you see, you
Yeah.
never know.
Never know. Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of guilt from what I've heard, there's a lot of guilt in Catholicism and a lot of guilt in the Jewish faith. Are they duking it out for who's going to be the most
Exactly. And meanwhile, I come back, I have a bunch of Irish, on my father's I have Irish and
yeah,
UK, and I do have Italian. Everyone thought it was going to come back. Loads of Italian. I didn't come back. Loads of Italian. But, I had more from the UK than I did from Italy.
yeah,
But I guess back then, a lot of them went from Italy. They went up to
yeah,
the UK.
yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share, you'd like to share with me that I've not asked you about, Diana?
Just, thank you for doing this and for helping. You know, I'm involved with a lot of different things and also organizations and everything. I'm a little bit onto every over the place with different things. I keep very busy, but listening to your podcast, and what you do for the community and others, it's so important. Don't ever stop doing it. It's so important, and it does. I think, you want to talk about healing for a moment. Healing is an ongoing process. I think it's just ongoing, and it's just if we could make ourselves, how do you heal? How do you find yourself? You yourself.
Well, I had a moment when I realized that who we truly are is unwoundable. So that that came that came to me as an insight. People say that time is the greatest healer. I say, well, if there's no change over that time, there's no healing. You know, but when I say we're unwoundable, people think I'm nuts. But that's how it depends by it depends on what we're defining as us. I'm saying that our essence, um, what some people call our spirit, or what other people call consciousness, um, in scientists would call consciousness. All that is whole. It doesn't need to heal because it can't be wounded. Now, that sounds a little bit nuts to a lot of people. So, what what I say these days, and I find this is a little bit more palatable or can be more understood more easily. I say, well, when it comes to healing, I look at healing on two levels. On one level, perhaps a psychological level, will all be healing forever.
So you're
Yeah,
with that on that.
on that, and at a deeper level, we are always whole. So
And
for
you
me,
and your voice matters. Your voice will always matter. Your voice, the fact that you're not silent, it matters. It's important.
yes, yeah, and some people find it. A lot of people find um, psychological healing in finding the truth, writing their story, sharing their story, ending the shame, ending the lies, all that stuff. That is all psychologically healing. Yes. Yeah. But we're not our psychology.
No, no, I don't have a degree in
No,
psychology.
no, we are not our
No.
psychology. We are not our psychology. So the deeper level of us, our essence, our spirit, our consciousness, that it's where we identify. So let me put it this way. Um, I saw a post on I saw a post on LinkedIn. It was so, and it was from a person who will remain nameless,
Okay.
uh, who who said who and the title of the post was "I am trauma." Right?
Oh, okay. What I
I
saw.
am I am trauma. Right. So there is no way that so I don't agree with that, but there is no
Yeah.
way
I
everybody's entitled to their own opinion. She's entitled to her opinion.
Mhm.
I'm entitled to mine. But so there's no way that I am going to disrespect her or him. However, I did do a Facebook post of my own, which was kind of an answer to it, right? And so this is how it goes. We are not our trauma. We are what's aware of it. We are not our trauma. Trauma comes and goes. We are what was there before and what's left afterwards. We are not our trauma. Before we are triggered, we are at peace. After the explosion fades, we are at peace. We are not our trauma. Trauma is a toxic cocktail of fear, shame, and grief, but we are the glass, not its contents. We are not our trauma. We are the space it erupts in, not the eruption. We are our trauma. It reverberates through our nervous system, but we are not the feeling. We are the one that feels it. We are not our trauma. Coming out of the fog reveals the storm of our trauma, but we are the sky, and the sky is untouched by the storm. We are not our trauma. It sometimes plays out as a horror movie, but we are the screen the movie plays on, unscared, unterrified.
It's good, Simon.
We're not our trauma.
No, I agree.
And our trauma is psychological, and that psychology will be healing forever. I believe that. right? I believe that. I'm not a denier. I'm not a trauma denier. I'm not. I'm just saying we can look at healing on two levels. One at a
Hmm.
psychological level and at a deeper essential level. We're always whole. And the degree to which, so in my, you asked me about my stuff, the degree to which I can identify with my wholeness determines the quality of my internal life and my external life too.
Well, and finding peace, as you've asked me several times, is also part of my healing.
Yeah.
We all choose. We make the final choice.
Somebody told me last week we're responsible for our second thought, right? We can choose our second thought. And I thought that's brilliant, right? Because we have these thoughts. I have really strange thoughts, right? They pop into my head, right?
I
And
guess.
but I'm not responsible. I can't choose that, but I can choose the next thought. And so the next thought might be, do I continue going down do I continue on this thought train or do I get off the thought train? Right. So that's where choices for me. Most of the time, most of us aren't choosing most of what we think, feel, and do. Most of the time, it's not. It isn't a choice. Our conditioning, our conditioning is making the choice for us. We're not making the choice. But that choice over the second thought, I thought was genius.
True.
Thanks a lot, Diana. Thank you, listeners, and
Thank, thank you so much,
you're welcome.
Simon, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for being here too.
you too.
Thanks,
Mwah.
listeners. Lots of love.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.